Greatness is claimed, not granted. That's the fundamental truth we forget in a world that constantly asks us to wait our turn. From the time we're young, we're conditioned to seek permission from parents, teachers, bosses. We're told that if we just follow the rules, check the boxes, and be patient, eventually someone will tap us on the shoulder and say, "Now it's your time." But the world doesn't work like that. The people who make a mark, who change the way things are done, who inspire others, they don't wait to be chosen. They choose themselves. No one is going to hand you a certificate that says, "You're allowed to be great now." No one is going to clear the path and remove all the obstacles for you. That kind of moment doesn't arrive because someone gives it to you. It happens because you decide that what you have to offer matters. It happens because you look around and realize no one is coming to save you, and that's okay, because you were always the one meant to take the first step. The truth is, greatness begins the moment you stop asking, "Am I allowed?" and start saying, "I'm ready to show up." And not perfectly, not completely prepared, just willing to move forward, and that's where the shift happens. When you stop relying on external validation and start trusting your internal conviction, you unlock a kind of leadership and creativity that no title or role could ever bestow. Greatness isn't something you receive after proving yourself to others. It's something you live out by proving to yourself that you are capable of more than you once believed. It's not a reward, it's a responsibility. And it begins the moment you claim it. Stop waiting to feel ready. Start before you are. Readiness is a myth we cling to when we're afraid. We tell ourselves we'll take the leap once we're more experienced, more qualified, more confident. But that moment rarely comes. There's always something we feel we lack. The truth is, most people who do bold things never truly feel ready when they begin. They simply decide that their willingness to try outweighs their fear of not being enough. The idea of ready is comfortable. It gives us a reason to delay, to stay safe, to avoid the discomfort of the unknown. But growth doesn't come from perfect conditions. It comes from movement, from trying, failing, adjusting, and trying again. Readiness is not a prerequisite for action. It's a result of it. You become ready by doing, by engaging, by starting small and continuing anyway. Every skill, every moment of confidence, every breakthrough. It all begins with a first step taken before the path was clear. We admire people who are bold, who take initiative, who create things that didn't exist before. But often we forget that their journey began with uncertainty too. They weren't ready. They just decided that waiting wasn't going to get them any closer to who they wanted to be. So they moved, they risked being wrong, they risked looking foolish, and in doing so, they discovered their capability. They didn't find confidence, they built it. If you wait until you're ready, you'll wait forever. Because readiness is not an external state, it's an internal decision. You don't need more time to prepare. You need the courage to begin without all the answers. You need the humility to learn as you go. And you need the belief that action, not perfection, is the true catalyst for transformation. Fear often disguises itself as logic. It shows up with reasonable sounding thoughts wrapped in language that feels responsible and mature. Now's not the right time. Maybe I should get a bit more experience first. What if it doesn't work out? These don't sound like fear. They sound like wisdom. They sound like strategic thinking. But often, they're fear in a business suit, pretending to protect us, when in reality, they're keeping us small. We give these thoughts too much credit because they help us avoid discomfort. They let us stay where we are and call it being prudent. But if we peel back the layers, we often find that beneath those calculated justifications is a simple truth. We are scared. Scared of failing, scared of being judged, scared of standing out. Fear is clever. It rarely announces itself directly. Instead, it borrows the voice of reason and tells us, "You're just being smart." And we believe it because who doesn't want to be smart? But progress demands that we challenge those voices. Not ignore them, but interrogate them. We have to ask ourselves, is this hesitation truly based on fact, or is it fear masking itself as logic? Is this caution helping me grow, or is it protecting me from growing pains? When we fail to ask these questions, we let fear control the steering wheel while pretending we're just being strategic. Growth lives on the other side of fear, and often the hardest part isn't pushing through it. It's recognizing it for what it is. Because once we do, we reclaim our power, we stop mistaking avoidance for intelligence, we stop labeling inaction as maturity, and we start making decisions not just based on what feels safe, but on what aligns with who we want to become. Clarity comes through action, not overthinking. We often believe that if we just think a little longer, plan a little better, or gather a little more information, we'll suddenly arrive at the perfect solution. But that's not how clarity works. It doesn't show up fully formed at the end of a long mental process. It arrives in pieces, revealed only through the doing. You don't figure things out by standing still. You figure them out by moving. The mind is an incredible tool, but it also has a tendency to spiral. We loop through the same questions over and over. What if I fail? What if it's the wrong choice? What if I'm not ready? And with every loop, the path forward feels more uncertain. But often the answer isn't more thinking, it's more trying. Because when you take action, even small action, the fog starts to lift. You start to see what works, what doesn't, what feels right, and what feels off. That's how you learn, that's how you refine, that's how clarity is built. Most people are waiting for certainty before they act. But certainty is often the result of action, not the prerequisite for it. The first step won't give you the whole picture, but it gives you momentum. It gives you data. It gives you something to respond to, and that movement, that feedback, is infinitely more valuable than any perfect plan crafted in isolation. The more we move, the more we learn. The more we learn, the clearer things become. Action narrows the gap between where you are and where you want to go, not because it guarantees success, but because it keeps you in motion. It breaks the illusion that you need all the answers first and reminds you that progress is a process, not a decision. Lead without a title. Impact doesn't need permission. Leadership isn't about position. It's not about having the biggest office, the loudest voice, or the final say. True leadership is about influence, responsibility, and the willingness to act when others won't. You don't need to be appointed a leader to start thinking, speaking, and behaving like one. The most powerful acts of leadership often come from those who simply saw something that needed to be done and chose to step up. When we tie leadership to hierarchy, we limit who gets to lead. We tell ourselves, once I get promoted, then I'll lead, or it's not my place. But the truth is, you don't need authority to bring clarity to a chaotic moment. You don't need a title to offer support to someone struggling. You don't need a badge to solve a problem no one else is addressing. You just need the courage to care enough to act. Leadership is presence. It's how you carry yourself. It's how you treat people when things go wrong. It's how you show up when no one is watching. And often, the people who make the biggest difference aren't the ones at the top. They're the ones in the middle, in the trenches, creating ripples of change by how they choose to show up every day. Their leadership isn't assigned, it's felt. You can be that person. You can lead in the conversations you start, in the tone you set, in the standard you hold. You can lead in how you respond to pressure, how you give credit, how you handle mistakes. Titles may give you authority, but behavior earns you respect, and real leadership, the kind that leaves a legacy, isn't about power. It's about service, consistency, and the decision to act in alignment with your values. Be the sign you're looking for. Too often, we wait for confirmation, some external signal that tells us we're on the right path, that we're capable, that it's time. We look for mentors, for validation, for a sign that we're ready to begin. But what if that sign isn't coming from outside? What if it's something we create ourselves, not something we receive? The truth is, most people are searching for the same thing you are: clarity, confidence, and a sense of purpose. They're scanning the horizon for someone to follow, someone to show them what's possible. But they don't need someone with all the answers. They need someone who's willing to take the first step, someone who dares to move even with uncertainty. That someone can be you. When you decide to go first, you become a mirror for others. Your courage gives them permission to be courageous. Your vulnerability gives them room to be honest. Your initiative shows them it's okay to act before everything feels certain. In doing so, you stop being someone who needs a sign and start being someone who is one. It's easy to underestimate the impact of our actions, especially when they feel small. But the way you speak up in a meeting, the way you encourage someone quietly, the way you stay grounded during chaos, those things ripple, they influence, they lead. Not because you're trying to impress, but because you're showing what it looks like to move with intention. Being the sign doesn't mean having it all figured out. It means being willing to show up fully, even when you don't. It means modeling the behavior, the mindset, the commitment you wish more people had. And in doing so, you become the very thing others are hoping to find.